So apologies, everybody, but thank you very much. And before we get going, I do want to thank Dan and the Rat Pack for putting this together. It's an honor to speak in front of you guys. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Marv Hoffman up in Boone, North Carolina, who represents the members of ARRL here in North Carolina. Marv, if you'd like to say any quick words, sir, I'll give the floor to you. I want to put you on the spot there.
You might want to lower your desktop there if you want there, Greg.
It's just an honor to be here with you tonight, Greg. Thank you for what you do.
Awesome. And you guys can see these slides, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Outstanding. Good deal. Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I started to call out names. I see a lot of familiar faces on here. And thank you guys for what you do, folks from North Carolina. Thank you guys for your services and volunteering when the time comes. So, and I do mean it, and I did mean it when I sent the message to Mr. Waterman today about the Godfather built all this. So, I serve at the pleasure of him when it comes to amateur radio, and he's a mentor to pretty much everybody in this state as far as tactical operators in the communications field. So Mr. Waterman mentioned my call sign W3FIE. Yes, 3 call sign is in the Pennsylvania area. W3FIE belonged to James Stone of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You see his card there. So I had the distinct honor to marry James Stone's his granddaughter. When I met her, and she was my girlfriend at the time, told her what I did, worked for the fire department, and was into communications. And she said, "You would have loved my grandfather." He passed away before I ever met him, but I went and got my license. KJ4EIN was my original call. And that Christmas, I was gifted this card from his daughter, my mother-in-law. So it's an honor every time I get to tell this story and key up a radio and broadcast those call signs. So enough about me. So real fast, we're here to talk about amateur radio in North Carolina, how we approach the use of amateur radio operators in emergency situations. So I'm going to go at it and give you guys the bottom line up front. Right? So I was in the fire service for 17 years, and I learned the chief is a great person. When is dinner? And don't ever hold the chief up from getting dinner or lunch. So I'm going to give it to you straight away. Bottom line up front for us. When it comes to amateur radio or anything that when it comes to disaster communications in North Carolina, any member of the state emergency response team or the CERT communications branch, right? Number one, we support local emergency management agencies. Doesn't matter who you are or what you do, whether you're a COML or you're with a commercial entity serving with voice and data or helping with that stuff. Our job is to support local emergency management agencies. You guys have heard this a ton of times, I'm sure. Disasters begin and end at the local level. So, and number two, get people who are in trouble help as fast as you can, period. That is the job that we do. That is the job that you do if you're in emergency communications. If you ever lose sight of that, you should stop doing it. We do this because we are getting people help. And I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about how we do that. So, so from our perspective in North Carolina, we get people help and we operate as a team, right? Teamwork is number one. It doesn't matter what patch you wear. It doesn't matter what team you're with. It doesn't matter if you hang on the end of a rope from a helicopter. It doesn't mean if you are in charge of finance to get people recovery funding. It does not matter. We work as a team. Number two, we respect. We respect each other. We respect our work. We respect our customers. Bottom line. We're creative, right? Problems aren't easy. Sometimes it takes some creativity. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I love to brag on our amateur radio community in North Carolina. Some really creative people, a lot of really interesting stuff. And I always know that if there's a problem, I can toss it to an amateur radio operator and they're probably going to figure it out. We've got to be flexible. We've got to be flexible. Disasters, emergencies, events, things that happen are not comfortable. We have to approach it and we have to be flexible. We're not getting together with people on their greatest days, right? So I think we have got to be, we've got to be flexible. Whatever it is you're assigned to do, you've got to be flexible and do that as a part of a team. And then honesty, we've got to be honest with each other, right? And I'm going to put a slide up here in a second. I expect honesty out of my amateur radio MCOM folks in North Carolina, AUXCOMM, ARES, RACES, whatever that is. I expect honesty. If something is not working, we've got to be honest with each other, and somebody has to say something's not working right. And then if we agree to it as a team and we're creative and flexible enough, we'll get the right product on the street. And finally, in North Carolina, I'm pretty passionate about this, but we do not take a wait and see or a we'll just see what happens mentality. We go after problems. We attack problems. We're tenacious. We do not let an incident or an event drive our activity. We want to drive the incident communications situation, whatever that is. Why I love AUXCOMM and the AUXCOMM ICS position is because I can plug them in and I know that they're going to have 4 or 5 different ways to fix a problem before it even presents itself. So, all right. So again, I'm going to be honest with you guys, right? We have an awesome group of people on here. I think we're at 307 people. So thank you guys for taking the time, number one, to listen to us jabber about North Carolina. But so why is AUXCOMM or the AUXCOMM position such a hot topic, right? We faced this, and I'm going to let Tom kind of touch on it in a few minutes. But I remember talking to Tom 2010-ish, 2010, 2011, when AUXCOMM just was in the infancy stages and started to have communications. But he said that there was a community in North Carolina that was angry. They were angry, and they didn't understand something was going on, right? So we talked about it and we were like, what's happening, right? And there probably still are angry people, but it's things like this, and it's reaching out to our customers to say, look, we might have missed the mark communicating with you. Like, miscommunication is the reason why teams don't get formed, in my opinion. All right. Tom, like, before I go on to that, do you have anything to say? Like, you want to make any comment on that? Kind of where we started and how we've gotten here?
Sure, yes, sir. I hope the audio is okay. So we didn't set off to create an AUXCOMM. There wasn't an AUXCOMM when we all got hot and moving about things. 2005, somewhere back in there, the governor made a proclamation that all agencies in the state and all of them would be NIMS ICS compliant, period, in the story. And we kind of weaved and dodged a little bit. I took my courses initially in 2005, I guess, first time, and a lot of pushback, a lot of issues, and then in 2010, I guess it was, we asked to have a meeting, a statewide ARES meeting at the state EOC in Raleigh, and they the big situation, and they let us do that. And the guy that we reported to there was the 24-hour center guy, and he made a few comments and gave us a few pats, but he said, you guys have been weaving and dodging about this. You just got to go do it. And if you're not interested in doing it, I got one message for you: get in or get out. Well, it's pretty easy to understand. So we got in. And so we began to require ICS training and some other things. And we never looked back. We couldn't look back. If we were doing somebody else's business, we're not doing our business, we're doing their business. And so that's where it all started, and we're still on that same track here. We respect other groups, and there's a lot of things to do in a hobby, but this is one part of the hobby that emerging MCOM is not a hobby. It requires a commitment. I hope that's not too much, Greg. Thanks.
Nope, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And we'll go into, I'll address exactly what he's saying here shortly. So I wanted to put this up here. I actually ripped this slide from my required North Carolina Office of Human Resources training 3 days ago. So thank you, OSHR. I got something out of that class. It was good. So this actually, I think, is kind of where we were and sometimes where we are in North Carolina. If we don't do a good job communicating, it's going to lead to those things that you see. And I do hear a lot is people coming to me saying, well, you know what I heard? And then I'm like, oh goodness, what now? So I'm going to get into kind of how we see AUXCOMM in North Carolina, and then I'm going to show you or kind of tell you why everyone in North Carolina has a job to do and a spot to fill. All right. So real quick, I also want to give kudos to South Carolina, our friends to the South, for last week's. I didn't get to join on last week, but kudos to those guys. They're doing some awesome things in South Carolina. So if you guys had an opportunity to check that one out too, before we got too further down the road, Mr. Stedman, Mr. Coomer down there are doing some really good things. So kudos to them. All right. So what is AUXCOMM? AUXCOMM is an ICS position, right? So for those that don't maybe not understand ICS, it's a structure of like boxes, like it's a hierarchy of command structure. So like there's one boss and then there's other people that answer to different people. It's a bunch of boxes and lines, right? Simply put. Each one of those boxes has a task. And within Incident Command, or ICS, which is what North Carolina, which is what Tom was alluding to, North Carolina Emergency Management required that when we activate the state emergency response team, we will operate under an ICS structure. So we will have those boxes and we will have those things and we will fill those boxes with the right people. So simply put, in North Carolina, we fill that box with trained Ares operators, RACES, REACT, MARS, everyone else, everything else, and anybody else that wants to help and get trained, right? But Tom talked about the governor's stance. I think it was Governor Easley way back when had said, if we're going to stand up the state emergency response team, everyone is going to start with the same level of training, and that's kind of how we got here. All right. So in North Carolina, we had our first class. I think Mr. Peterson taught that class in 2011 at the Charlotte Fire Police and Training Academy, and the future North Carolina AUXCOMM leadership was born out of that class. They had a mission, they had a direction, and they took off. And we tried to match the COML program with the AUXCOMM program because they were taking off. So we had to keep up actually. So, and the number is probably wrong. So I beg your pardon, Tom, Virginia, and Charlie, Bob Rogers, everybody. I apologize. That number is probably wrong. But there are over 200 AUXCOMM trained personnel, and that is trained to the CISA ECD curriculum. So in North Carolina, all amateur radio operators have the opportunity to fill the AUXCOMM position. Doesn't matter if you're a part of Ares, doesn't matter if you just got your license yesterday and you want to take training. As long as your authority having jurisdiction supports that training, come on, we've got a spot for you. Bring it. If you have an open mind, you follow those 5 rules and you work as a team, come on, we'll take you. There is a need in North Carolina. Someone's going to need your help. So in 2017, the SIEC approved this guidebook. I'm not going to read the slide, because I know we're going to have questions at the end, but in 2019, the guidebook was amended to include AUXCOMM, right? So the new position task book, that's the thing that you have to go through to demonstrate your capability and your abilities to do certain tasks. That was amended and it was approved. So we took an opportunity to get ahead of that. So, all right, and then this document codified training requirements. So it gave amateur radio operators who wanted to get involved, whether it's Ares, RACES, any of those things, if they wanted to take a step to get ICS training, it gave folks that, it gave them the roadmap to be a part of a response-based team within the state emergency response team. All right, so it also, that document also requires that folks that have deployable status have observed documented experience, right? For those of you that are in the Forest Fire Service or any of the other services, right? Whether it's military service, and for our veterans thank you for your service. You have to show proficiency at a task, right?
Same time like this, yeah, like that.
And Aaron, watch your mic, please, sir.
I think that's the weakest part.
Thank you. So you have to have that observed abilities, you know, whether it's qualifying with a weapon, whether it's going into a house on fire, you have to show that. We wanted to match that. All right. The primary focus of all of our training is to teach amateur radio operators how to assist their local authorities having jurisdiction. All right. And what that means is local emergency management, local police chief, sheriff, whoever that is locally, wherever you live, there is someone who is an authority having jurisdiction on what you do. All right. We want to make sure we pair those people with the AHJs. That way their desire, their training, their expertise is matched with someone who can effectively use it and account for it and get them a part of a team. So if we focus, if we address our training and tailor our training to that focus, we're going to win every single time. So that's North Carolina's, that's how we approach AUXCOMM, the AUXCOMM ICS position in North Carolina. So the relationship between NCEM, my agency, and the AUXCOMM ICS position, the personnel that fill that position. I remember way back, Mr. Knapp at the Eastern Branch during Hurricane Irene stayed behind the mic for hours and hours and hours. And he basically saved the day for Eastern North Carolina communications, and nobody knew about it. So I took offense to that, and I wanted to rip the curtain wide open to see what you all, or what amateur radio does for disasters. And again, the Godfather talked about it, right? ICS requirements came out, and then we are required to comply with that. I do want to say this: AUXCOMM works in North Carolina only because we've been given direction, and we are 100% supported by our leadership. So whether it's the Secretary of Public Safety all the way down to my position, if you will, we get the support to say we want to take care of North Carolinians. We want to make sure that our public servants, that our people are going out in the field. We want to make sure that we can talk. And amateur radio is a key piece to that. All right, so what does this mean? Does this mean that in North Carolina, amateur radios operators that want to help are automatically segregated just because they don't have AUXCOMM? Absolutely not. So there are thousands of amateur radio operators in North Carolina, licensed amateur radio operators.
Oh yeah, but no,
So how we take that within the communications branch when we activate, that equates to thousands of sensors out there that can immediately pass ground truth to that AUXCOMM position. Whether you're MCOM, it doesn't matter to me, right? You are a valuable piece of this puzzle in North Carolina. And you can provide what is happening. A lot of times during disasters, when communications lines are severed, no one knows what's happening out there. A lot of times resources are wasted because we don't have effective ground truth. We can utilize and mobilize amateur radio operators to get us that ground truth in a safe way. I want to stress that, but here's kind of how we roll out in North Carolina. The Godfather is a statewide AUXCOMM coordinator. We have three regional coordinators, one per North Carolina Emergency Management Branch, and that's West, East, and Central. And then we boil it down to county level AUXCOMM coordinators that kind of coordinate those resources and make sure the training and exercising is done appropriately. And then down to the individual level AUXCOMM folks are the people that can fill that. So that means AUXCOMM trained and deployable. Those folks are certified by the SIEC. They're voted on. They are their task books have to clear three layers of approvals. And then we have AUXCOMM trained and non-deployable. So those are the folks that get the training, but they're like, I don't really feel like leaving my home for 4 days and leave my family behind. Totally acceptable, totally commendable. And then we have non-AUXCOMM trained that are still valuable folks. They provide valuable services, and they're an awesome addition to the team. ICS is meant to be flexible, malleable, changeable. So we want to make sure that we keep that in mind and that focus. Real fast, here's a map. See those dark lines? Those are the segregation lines between East, Central, West. And this is how the AUXCOMM areas of operation or areas of responsibility line up. All right, real fast. This is what makes up the state emergency response team. From my perspective, these are the people that I have the honor to lead when North Carolina has its worst days. And real fast, I just want you to see that amateur radio has a position. Amateur radio is equal to everyone else on this slide. I take a lot of pride in that because a lot of times I don't really care who has a good answer. I don't care who has a solution. If we have a problem in North Carolina with communications, we throw it on the table, everyone talks about it, and we talk about the best solution to it. And if it's amateur radio, or if it's the smartest RF engineer in the building, or if it's someone from broadcast infrastructure who works on microwaves all day, I don't really care. We need to get help to people as soon as we can, right? Shameless slide for those of you who remember Card Sharks. Big fan as a kid. We asked a simple question a few years ago. involving PACE planning. For our military veterans, you guys know what PACE is, or primary alternate contingent emergency. Those are our 4 priorities during disasters. I went out and asked 100 county emergency management coordinators and then the tribal nation EMA, how would you make contact if you had to? Give me your PACE plan, right? I couldn't believe it, but we got almost 96% response, right? So primary, obviously, for those may not understand, Viper is our statewide radio network, 800 megahertz trunk system. So of course, there you go. We're going to use our cell phones first. Then we said alternate. Well, we're going to use our cell phone again, right? And then now we get into kind of where we're like, ooh, now I'm seeing some from us or from me and other folks that are coordinators by nature are starting to see a pattern of failure, not failure, but opportunities for failure. And then finally, your emergent means of communicating if needed. I want you guys to really focus in on that purple part. So over 35% said, well, we don't know. And then the other 36% said amateur radio. So if I take the 35% of we're not sure and introduce them to amateur radio, we've got that almost that whole pie covered with a solution, right? So this quick survey was a win. All right. And that's the task. That is what I task Tom with, the Godfather. I task him with that. Go out and shake, pick up the rocks and shake the trees and see what's out there. See what we can get to help out those local folks who say we're not sure, because we're not sure is not acceptable during a disaster, in my opinion. So, all right, we're going to talk about hurricane operations. So how we actually, once we've got everything together, how do we put the team on the field? All right. So during hurricane operations, I do want you guys to note that amongst the 42nd Civil Support Team, which is a National Guard unit, City of Asheville Fire, Charlotte, all these things, we have AUXCOMM teams or members that we form up of teams to mobilize and get out to the people that need it. Right. So 10 teams per branch. That is the number that we strive to meet. We try and get them available. So our job, or my job, is to fill gaps with capabilities. All right, so now you guys know the secret to emergency management during a hurricane. If there's a gap, you fill it with a capability and you get out of the way, right? But I do want you to notice the green, let's see, the green highlighted box. That is one of the very first requests made from our regional coordination center east, which is basically the eye of the storm. Traditionally, AUXCOMM has been one of the first resources requested in the preparation stages of a hurricane, which is a testament to the Godfather in his work. So the very first resource that they want is an amateur radio operator. So they see the value, they support us, they see the value in the mission that you guys provide. So my job is to put the ace in the place. And we do that by, it's called NC Terms, is the training and emergency response management system. We can compile all their data, all their information, their skill sets, training, everything on there. And we can go out and find them, and we can use, well, technically that's not how it actually works. I go to Tom or whoever the branch person is, and I'm like, we need help. We need 10 people, get them mobilized, get them out the door quick. Right. So that's kind of how it really rolls out, but I'll describe the slide as it was intended to be described. But the important part is that we can generate a mission order for an amateur radio operator. What that does, it comes from a .gov email address, and it comes out with clear guidelines, clear tasking, clear expectation, and it says, where you need to be, when, what time, etc. What that also does is that provides us liability coverage under General Statute 166A 19.60. So if we have an amateur radio operator who sets up an antenna and it falls down on somebody's car, we've got them covered, right? So that's a good thing. There's a couple things that really keep me up at night. Number one is safety of our people. So the volunteer aspect, we still have a little work to do on taking care of our volunteers. So if someone falls down and gets hurt, that keeps me up at night. And we got some work to do to make sure medically we're covering our amateur radio operators if I call them to North Carolina duty. So working on that, we're really close, I'm happy to say. I think we have a way to get that done. But we do have the ability to cover them liably if something that they do in the assistance of a North Carolinian causes loss to someone else. So, and finally, for me, I'm going to get the hell out of the way. I'm going to let you guys do what you're really good at, and I'm not going to get involved in it because I'm a technician level amateur radio operator. I'm mic shy, even though I talked on a radio for 17 years, but I'm going to let y'all do it. You guys are really good at it. So there's an example of a mission order for, I think this was Hurricane, I can't remember which one it is, Dorian. And that is 2 amateur radio operators, one who's acting as the COML for that operational period. And the other is the AUXCOMM operator brought in. So Ed and Laura Cutchins, Ed Wofford down at RCC East. So Ed is giving Laura a quick just-in-time training on how to use an 800 megahertz Viper radio because, surprise, if you fill the AUXCOMM position in North Carolina, you will probably be on a public safety band radio, operating, passing traffic, getting traffic, documenting what it is, and running messages, right? That's the other duties as assigned piece. And that is also how you guys can get trained and help. Here's an example of a map. This was drawn up by Virginia Enzer during Hurricane Dorian. The guidance we gave was put a map together. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand your 205, your ICS 205 form, which I'm not going to get into what that is just yet, but I'm thinking in another discussion down the line, you're going to learn about that too. So I said, put it on a map, because bosses, incident commanders, bosses, people in some type of decision-making position, they like pictures, right? So I said, put it in a picture. I'll be able to put it in front of somebody. We'll be able to understand it. So that's what happened. Really good product right there. All right, so now that we've got that, what is the future of AUXCOMM or amateur radio and emergency communications? What does that look like in North Carolina, right? I think we're missing the mark. I'll kind of get on my soapbox a little bit. I think we're missing the mark. I think we're hesitant to use amateur radio in certain situations. I don't know why, but it's like, oh, we can't do that. I don't really understand why. So my job is to kind of break down those walls and say, because I truly believe it, amateur radio is just as important as a 911 center, as is a field communications unit or mobile command vehicle, mobile communications vehicle. They're all the same. They're all interchangeable given the right scenario or situation, right? If 911 isn't working, that's a problem. You fix that one first, right? If people can't talk out of a 911 center, we might have a fix for that, right? If we sit down, spend time on it, put the ace into place, get out of the way, and attack it with tenacity, I think we'll be all right. Right. I think out of the 307 people on this call right now, 315 people on this call right now, I think we come up with a solution for that. Right. So if we open up our minds, expand our minds within disaster management and communications during disasters, the solutions are in front of us. We just have to reach out and use them. So I would love to see an integration of AUXCOMM operators or the AUXCOMM ICS position in a 911 center during a disaster, not just emergency operations center. I'd love to expand that. I want to see a WinLink shares capability in all 100 counties, EOCs, in 1 tribal nations. We're on the way to that on average. And Godfather, please don't make me come up missing tomorrow. But we are in the process. Over time, there's about 10 a year that inquire about it. They're saying, hey, what is this? How much does it cost? So what I'm trying to do is to take kind of our position within emergency management is to go after some grants. So if I can say, let me go after a Homeland Security grant program for a certain dollar amount, I can buy 10 a year and get you guys what you need, get those EOCs what they need for that emergent communications pathway. Training. You'll hear me talk about that for any other session, or you listen to me. I'm going to beat that drum. We've got to train. If we're not ready for, we're not ready for North Carolina's worst days. We shouldn't even, I think we're cheating ourselves and our citizens on that one. So there's no excuse for that. Teams that go to the Super Bowl don't go to the Super Bowl because they don't train. So, and then talk a little bit to the community college the community college system here in North Carolina, we want to make sure there's a means to get the younger folks, the younger generation of college age students into public safety communications, whatever that may be, right? And we're up against a lot. But we are making strides with that, having conversations with Elizabeth City State University here in North Carolina, Pasquotank County. And they are offering a module in one of their training classes for emergency management. And they've gotten some excitement about it. So, and that is a testament to the passion of our amateur radio operators and our AUXCOMM operators in North Carolina. So I usually end, I end my discussion about what AUXCOMM means in North Carolina. So this is a picture of North Carolina's disaster of record, the worst disaster North Carolina has ever seen. It's Hurricane Florence. And I thought I saw Mr. Hurdlebrink on the line around the meeting today. He was there. He came from Colorado as a part of an IMT and helped us tremendously. We can never repay him for that. But this was the team that assembled. I challenge you to pick out the AUXCOMM operators as a member of this team, right? I challenge you, because the intent is that everyone is there. Everyone is working hard. The gentleman the way back there who was the COMC, you can tell he probably hadn't slept in about 4 days, but everyone in there is working together. And I think if we kind of, specifically in North Carolina, we keep the aspect of teamwork in not worrying about the details, not worrying about the who and what patch you wear, what it says in your name tag, the stuff that's written on your hat. The amateur radio, it really makes me angry when public safety folks talk smack because someone walks in with a call sign written on their hat. It really makes me angry, because I immediately turn to them and say, what the hell's on your hat? You have it says engine 4 on it, right? It's the same thing, right? So it's just, again, it boils down to miscommunication. They mock what they don't understand. All right, so if we break down those walls, we get the right teams together and get out of the way, I think we're good to go. So I'm going to pass it to the Godfather. So the Godfather gave me distinct orders to place these in for his comment and his discussion. So I'm going to pass it off to you, sir. And you just let me know when you need me to slide, sir.
Oh, these are just reminders, nothing just but reminders. Sometimes our hobby or service, amateur radio, it's called service by the FCC. Sometimes folks lose sight of what we're really here for, and we're chartered under Part 97 of the FCC rules and regulations, and dot 1, and A under that says what the expectations are. It says right down there. It says with respect to providing emergency communications. It doesn't say anything about contesting. It doesn't say anything about logbook of the world. It doesn't say anything about all the other things a lot of us enjoy. It says provided with emergency communications. That's why we're here. And the rest of it, I guess, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but that's why we're here. Next slide, sir. Slide. So this is a discussion point that doesn't need to be. There's an issue that's been going on since the 1980s where the FCC, at the behest of AT&T, back when AT&T was very concerned that amateur radio might take away some of the dollars. I'm not sure why they thought that, but anyhow, they thought that. And they put up a technical limitation for digital communications. And we're the only country in the world that's left, in the entirety of the world, that still has this kind of restriction. And so if we went to the big problem, somebody made a problem when there shouldn't have been one a couple of years ago about using WinLink and other voice bandwidth wide mechanism for protocols for sending data. And so now we find ourselves occasionally, some states out west, particularly in the fires, when they need they have the capability to employ some additional bandwidth mechanisms for sending data. You have to go to the FCC and get a temporary special authority, STA. And we think that's not correct. There ought to be in there as it is. If we can use a voice, if we use voice in there, we should be able to use data. If we use any data at all, we should be able to use whatever we've got and meets the needs and meets the specifications. So that needs to be dealt with. That's in the hands of the FCC. There was an NPRM about that a couple of years ago. Nobody took any action on it, but that can be done. Hopefully it does. And one more slide, please.
I think I skipped one there, Tom. I'm going to go actually back one. So it'll be this one right here. Is that what you're seeing? The change required?
Yeah.
Star,
Yes,
star? Okay.
So, yeah, so the symbol rate needs to be, I drew a yellow line through that, needs to be removed. All kind of people can whiz and moan about that, and they all had an opportunity to have the voices and some non-voices, some liars, put information out about that, which is not relevant. Hopefully the FCC will see the day and correctly and open this up and take this roadblock out of our way. It's one more layer in our communication structure. And the last slide is, I was mentioning a minute ago, we need to have a couple of channels someplace in there on each band to the MCOM only. We need to see that. It's been discussed at high levels in the FCC. I'm very well aware of that. And I don't know what they will do about it eventually, but I'd like to see it. Sir, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Godfather. Appreciate you. Yep. And, just for everybody, thank you guys for kind of listening to us for the past 45 minutes. And, I think we've got a good team. I'm pretty proud of all the amateur radio operators that have stepped up and, gotten into MCOM and specifically AUXCOMM, and some into COML and other type of situations. But I can tell you all of my amateur radio operators, if I asked them to break a wall down, all of them would do it. And I can't say that about all of my, all of my comms folks. So take that as you may. But again, I'm honored to be here. And I look forward to questions if that's appropriate. So I'll stop sharing, and Dan, I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. And I will stop the, I think I'm going to stop it. Yeah, remove spotlight. There you go. And we'll do the same thing here with Tom. Hi, Tom. Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity. Dan, thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for everybody for taking the time to listen this evening. We don't have all the answers. We have some from North Carolina, and sometimes it takes long. Somebody remarked everything takes longer than it takes, and there's a lot of time invested. But others are working just as hard as we are. I saw Edwin Whitworth put a note up a minute ago from Georgia. That guy never sleeps. We don't. I mean, you can't get him on the phone, but he's not sleeping. I mean, it's just the way it is. So everybody has to work hard, and we are, and everybody else on this call is. Thanks for the opportunity to have a few things to say.
Well, Tom, thank you very much. And Greg, you too. Appreciate the great presentation. I hope this is not the last we'll be hearing from you guys going forward. I think there's a lot to offer to the hams, as the hams have a lot to offer to you guys, and working together to make it come together. I think that's a good deal.
I wanted to make a comment. I forgot to do this. We're all interested in having youth in amateur radio. And when I read the bio, the full bio of Greg Hauser, I thought I was looking at somebody that was getting ready to, call it quits. I mean, that's a full career bio. Greg Hauser is 43 years old.
Uh-oh, he's going to get you.
Yeah. Well, you can find out a lot on the internet nowadays, so I'm sure.
I mean, that is just amazing to me when I look at the accomplishments, and to think that somebody like Greg embraces what we strive to do, and somebody like Greg and Tom Brown provide us a pathway so that we do it correctly.
That's why we call Greg old man.
Okay, before we get going too wild here, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a thing called reactions at the bottom of your Zoom thing. If you hit reactions, you'll see a place to raise hands. You want to comment. Click that to raise a hand, or put a question in the chat. We have a lot of people here, and we have people just kind of jumping in like we'll be going crazy. Gerald's got his hand up, and Marty does. Marty, I think you did yours first, so take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here. North Carolina's reputation as far as MCOM is second to none. So we appreciate your input very much. I would like a little elaboration on what training you specifically expect of AUXCOMM operators. Is it uniform across the app, across that function, or do you have layers and so on?
Sure. So I'll talk briefly, and then I'll kind of kick it to either Tom or his designee on that. But yeah, so in order to mobilize, well, to fill the AUXCOMM position, we're not at a position right now where we have hundreds of folks that have position task books certified, et cetera. But so right away, in order to take the CISA ECD sponsored auxiliary communications course, you have to have one ICS 100 or IS 100, 200, 700, and 800. All right, so those are automatic. You got to have those. And in North Carolina, we take it kind of a step further. We want to foster the interaction with local authorities having jurisdiction. So we'll tell them, hey, reach out to your local EM, tell them you're interested in this course. And then we kind of get them to say, this is who I am. Go to the class, get the training. After that training is get the classroom training. It's 3 days and you get a course certificate. After that, you start the process. There is a follow-on within our position task book in North Carolina. Tom, Marv, Virginia, a lot of and Bob Rogers and a lot of other folks, they decided to add a few more things, or a state addendum. So that involves WinLink. You have to take an 8-hour WinLink class in order to show proficiency in that. You also have to take a class that requires you to get a login, and then you have to take training for it's called Web EOC. It's the emergency management platform for which resources are requested and then mobilized. So we feel it is vital for AUXCOMM to have that capability, because a lot of times they're going to be sitting in an area where they can help watch that. They can help get those messages in, pass them along, or even empowered to make those assignments. So that's a big deal. There is also training required for position task books that requires you to take 800 megahertz trunk system training up to and including talking on it. So we want to get AUXCOMM operators on the air. We want to get them proficient. So finally, that's in a nutshell, that's the training. So Tom, what did I miss?
Greg, I might ask you, what part of that training is mandatory in-house, and what part of that training is available online?
So right now, the WinLink, actually we just got done with it, and there's so many people on, I can't see who it is, but they just got done with an online WinLink training program where it was done in modules. So it was, do these certain tasks, and when you're done, we'll give you the next set. And it took about, and I'm estimating here, it took it anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks for students to get through the entire process. Very beneficial. But it was on the workload was very light. It was just getting the time for these folks to get it done. So.
Okay, unless Tom has something to add, we'll go to our next question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, Gerald, go ahead and do it. Do it to it. You're muted.
Get me on audio.
Okay, I'm back on now, right?
Yes, you're looking good.
Good. How do you integrate the ARES format in your state with the AUXCOMM? In other words, it seems to me that the whole structure of ARES that has been established by the ARRL, without which there wouldn't be amateur radio today, has been totally discarded. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely, I'd love to comment on that. That is a misinterpretation of how it's, I guess, of how we operate in North Carolina. Locally, we have numerous counties that engage ARES. They use ARES every day. That's how when they activate. ARES is the group that stands up and they operate amateur radios in their EOC. They work, whether it's marathons, special events, things like that. I'll reiterate, I'll go back to my presentation. AUXCOMM is an ICS box. It's a position. So so it would be like, I'm trying to make a good analogy here. I don't even know. I'd be remiss if I tried. I'd probably make a fool of myself. But no, that's inaccurate. So ARES in numerous counties is very strong, remains strong. We are not circumventing that process. We're not circumventing that those groups of people. We're not circumventing the work of amateur radio clubs at the local level. What we're trying to do is provide, per North Carolina, per governor's guidance, we are providing folks that are capable of filling that ICS position, that incident command structure system. Good question, Gerald.
All right. Tom, at any time you want to jump in, you just jump in. Robert D., looks like you're up next. You're muted, Robert.
And I also got a question in chat.
Yeah, we'll get to chat in a little bit. Robert, you're muted. Well, we'll have to get back to Robert. We don't hear him right now. Okay, Mr. Small letter Dan, let's put you on here. Take it away. You're muted, Dan.
No, I'm not. I was. Greg, I want to thank you for a lot of things, but I think most importantly, it's the way you did and didn't distinguish between amateur radio and amateur radio operators in the functions that they serve within the state EMA communications branches. I think that's crucial. I tell you what, I've never been more flattered than when the Godfather calls me up and yells at me.
It's the life I live, sir. I live that life every day.
Yeah, well, we may have something in common then. The issue of ARES is a very sore point, because I think we're all here now together because ARRL's committees are incapable of providing the leadership that you're providing with AUXCOMM. And ARES groups, for the most part, are borrowing the name because traditionally that meant they had some qualifications and training. I think in terms of structured communication with the mothership or ARRL, more sections, ARES groups ignore it than willingly participate in the way it had been the last couple of years. And I think some of us feel obliged to make them recognize they should focus on what they're good at and provide generalized support in a framework where you don't even have to differentiate ARES from any other body of amateur radio operators, whether they're from a club or whatever. They funnel through AUXCOMM to learn how to behave in an ICS environment. And bingo, amateur radio as a whole gets back to where it was 25 years ago. In a lot of states, not just those of you that are as fortunate to have the Godfather and governors that make this possible for no cost other than a lot of hard work.
Yeah, here, it is a lot of hard work, but yeah, I think, well, this is just my interpretation. And I say this respectfully to all parties involved. It's not just about ARES, and I say that with respect. And I also say it's not just about AUXCOMM. It's not just about RACES. It's not just about the Charlotte Fire Department, nor the Asheville Fire Department, nor it's not about any of that. It's not about firefighters and paramedics and police officers. It's about the team. It's about the structure that's put together to put the best product in place to react and mitigate a disaster. I think I saw in the chat earlier, the state level of a response is different from the local level of response, right? The two have to work together. They have to work in concert, right? When a local incident becomes too much and it exceeds the resources of what that local authority having jurisdiction can support, they reach up to a regional state, the regional coordination center, specifically how North Carolina works, right? And it's that regional coordination center to coordinate, right? What can we get from other counties and other places, whether it's amateur radio operators, whatever that looks, whatever it is. We put our heads together and we figure out what the resource is to fill that gap. We do it expeditiously. And if the state can't handle it, then I start calling Edwin in Georgia. Say, Edwin, what you got for me, buddy? And they say, whatever you need, bud. And that's how it works, right? So I think that's my interpretation, because I don't see it how you guys see it. I don't see the Aries. I don't see the races. I don't see that. So it's tough for me to kind of feel what you guys feel, or feel the Aries members on the call, the frustration. It's tough for me to feel that because I don't see it. So I hope that helps. I appreciate everything everyone does, and it's that's why it's tough for me to see.
Agency I retired from, the motto was, "It's the mission," and I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, speed to the need, and I know, my old boss said, if you can't produce something for me that'll help the team, you can take it to the parking lot, which meant get out, right? And if a decision you make doesn't benefit a county in North Carolina, don't make that decision. It's a bad decision.
Okay, I might need to say a few things here in regards to the ARL. I am a section manager, and so we're very much involved with that. ARL is trying to regroup themselves. They've just lost their person they had. He had health problems, and the person they had to try to lead that up left. So they haven't replaced him, and they have a brand new committee they put together to address areas. So they're out of sync right now. Many people on here will say they've been out of sync for a long time, but they're trying to rectify that and fix it. In all fairness to the situation, though, I have to say that we have numerous ones here on this deal have asked the ARRL to participate in this series, and they've outright refused to do it. Why, I don't know. I wish they would come out here because we'd love to hear from them. That is their choice. Meanwhile, we really appreciate those people, Greg, and people like you guys that tell from your point of view and how it works for you. That's what it's all about. That's what the hams are doing, is servicing you guys. Okay, let's move on to another one here. Larry, there's a bunch of people in chat too, so we're going to have to break after a while to get to that. Larry, KI6BKP, go ahead.
There we go. I finally got unmuted. Actually, the other gentleman who was before me, Ron, or what is it, who couldn't unmute his mic, it'd be fair for him to go first because I think he got unmuted. Who is that other gentleman? Oh,
I don't know,
Robert.
So go ahead. We'll go back to Robert in a moment.
Okay, I was just wondering, do you use other than WinLink? Do you use NEBS or any other like JT8 or any of the other digital formats, basically?
This is Tom from North Carolina. I can answer that. No, we don't. We have the capability and have done it. Some of us are ex-Mars and whatever shares currently, and it's awfully nice to go on a voice frequency where you're already talking about a problem, and be able to send a message to numerous people by MT63 or something like that. Otherwise, basically, there's a philosophy, and it's not just me. One of the things that we've tried to stay away from here is hams talking to hams. You see a lot of nets up. Everybody wants a net up for something, and sometimes you get information from that. But here, what we're looking for is people that gather information to get it to an agency, not get it to a ham who can talk about it or send it through 18 hops unless everything else is broken to get it there. We have the capability, but we just generally don't use it. In North Carolina, there are 9 WinLink RMSs. There are currently most of them in the share side, but we've also got, I believe, about another 6. I think they're in the ham bands. And so if anybody that's familiar with WinLink, you know that if you get a message into WinLink by internet, email, however you get it in there, with a proper address, it'll come out the other side. You don't have to worry about hopping between people and who's got propagation, whose antennas down, that sort of thing. You can get it into an RMS, send it to the state EOC in Raleigh or the Regional Coordination Center, one of the three out there, where the message needs to go. They'll get the message. We've also got, Greg mentioned it earlier. I think, I believe it's correct, about 21, I think, of the 100 counties. Some counties don't even have any hams in them, or maybe 2 or 3 old people like me, but they have WinLink capabilities there. And there's also a number of individuals that participate with their own equipment. You know, it might be sound card based in a ham band. So we use that WinLink pretty much to the greatest extent possible. So we're not doing much in beams, that sort of thing. It does work well, but we're trying to stay away from that. We want to have our responders facing authorities having jurisdiction and not some other entities out there, unless they're serving the Red Cross or somebody like that. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it did. I can see where you're coming from.
Okay, Robert, are you still there? You want to come on? I lowered your hand, so I can't pull you out, but if you're still, come on now with your question.
Yes, is the mic working?
Works fine now. Go ahead.
Okay, we do have sound. I just want to thank you from the state of Tennessee, from Hamilton County down here, that you're putting this on. I hope there are a lot of us hams from this area watching, because what you're saying is inspirational. I can put it that way. This is a different thread, getting off of that for a moment, because you've gotten a lot of compliments, which you deserve, but different thread. What planning are you doing for the anniversary of 9/11 there with hams and with the agencies to get them into shape to be ready to mobilize radio-wise, otherwise, should something occur?
Good question, Robert. I appreciate that. So we try and take an approach, or at least I try and take an approach. I don't want to be the doomsday guy, right? I don't want to be, constantly harping on all of our partners to be ready for the next terrorist act or man-made disaster, right? But it's out there. We all know it. We'd be kidding ourselves if we didn't know it. I think the biggest thing that we do to make ready is we send the message out to folks: keep your ears open, right? In your club nets, in the other nets that you guys have, whatever that is, keep your ears open. If something doesn't sound right, if someone's talking about something that doesn't sound right, tell somebody about it, right? And we've gotten some really good information just by educating our licensed amateurs about that. But as far as I'm concerned, from my perspective, to specifically answer your question, is the communications branch in North Carolina operates under the operations section, so it's a little different from the normal way of operating. So we are. We work really closely with the Homeland Security branch. So they read us into some of the things that are going on with critical infrastructure, threats to critical infrastructure, which is why I'm extremely proud and very spoiled to have such a really good AUXCOMM program or amateur radio program to say, all I normally do is send Tom a message to say, ears up, please tell your regional coordinators to have their ears up, be prepared. Something doesn't look right. And we've seen some stuff in the past where we've had to take that stance, but I think all of us need to have that forward lean, right? North Carolina takes the approach of bad gals are going to do bad things. We're not afraid. We're going to be forward leaning, and we're going to be ready, and we're going to exercise. We're going to give the doomsday. The Black Pearl is going to run aground in Charlotte at some point. Even though there's no waterway that goes into Charlotte, but we're gonna go after that. We're gonna make our AUXCOMM operators or amateur radio folks that fill AUXCOMM positions. We're gonna make them uncomfortable in training, in exercises. We're gonna make them very uncomfortable. So we're ready for the next 9/11. I really hope that never comes. But good question, Robert. Thank you.
This is Tom in North Carolina. Just one more, just an side injection. 9/11 invokes a lot of horrible memories from a lot of things. Over a beer, I'll tell somebody where I was on that day and what and how. But among the things we've done here, I think is pretty interesting. At the state EOC in Raleigh, which is the state warning point, and it's also a watch desk. It's not just a reactive desk. They're overwatching fingers and pies and whatever. they, on all, I think it's six terminals plus the manager's terminal there, I believe, plus ESF2's got it. On the hot side of the land, and they're on their computers where they have email clients, they also have an attachment to the sheriff's WinLink terminal there. Of course, anybody that again uses WinLink knows that if you get a message into the system and send it to a WinLink address, it'll get there. It's immaterial whether it's a ham or whether it's going a federal agency, whoever it might be. It's just a flat line once it goes in the system. So you can send, I won't say what it is here, but you can send a message at 4 o'clock in the morning when everything's dark, using a sound card with a QRP radio. If you can get into an RMS server someplace within 100 miles or hundreds of miles of here, to an email address at state EOC, and it ends up in the 24-hour center. And so you can imagine if somebody, we used to talk about this, somebody's here's a beeping at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's down at the beach someplace, and he's wonders what the crap that is, and it's UPS beeping, and he gets up and there's no lights at work, and he goes over to the window and looks out, and everything, there's no street lights on, it's pretty dark out there, and his cell phone doesn't work. I mean, draconian sort of thing. If he's got an HF radio, he's got a sound card, whether it's in his truck or whether it's in, run off a car battery under his desk. You can find a way to get an easy way to send a spot rep out using one of the templates and WinLink Express. And we don't do it for blue sky, everything here is all right, but you can send a message if you got no other way to do it to the 24-hour center, the state watch desk, and say, don't know if this is of any widespread alarm notice, but as far as I can see, there are not any lights on down here. The phones don't work, the television station's off, and we don't know what the heck's going on, but thought you might like to know about that. And that's one more layer that is in the plan. And so it's not just the ham picking up, talking to some other ham at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to find anybody like that who probably knows how to do it. But if the mechanism is in place and we've exercised that, pretty good chance we find somebody out there that can get the job done, hopefully.
All right. Well, I thank you very much. I tell you what, I'm going to take a break from the hands held up. We've been on there. I'm going to turn it over to the text, posing the text answers questions here in a moment. I'll have Barry do that. Before we do that, though, I want to put out there to all the agencies and hams as involved with agencies, we're trying to find ways to work together to get to know each other and work together. So if you have ideas on how to do that, presentations that could be developed to encourage that and get that going, we tell about it. We'll work with you to make it happen. With that in mind, Barry, go ahead and take some questions out of chat.
Okay, well, this one is, I guess it's kind of important for the people in North Carolina, but it could probably relate to the other states too. Will the 5-year limit on task books be extended any due to COVID? I assume that means once you start your program, you have 5 years to complete your task book. And is that going to be extended due to COVID?
Tom, go ahead, sir.
No, I'll just go ahead, Greg. I'll make a quick comment. Not really. There's certainly limitations. Have been limitations for people to get together and work on scenarios. We have incidents regardless of what happens, and everybody is here and everywhere else. The majority of people across the nation have some concerns about being infected with this. None of us are looking forward to that. But there are opportunities to get other things done in the task book other than going to an incident or going to a big event to work. So you already have a couple years to get that done. One of the things about our the sister task book, the one in North Carolina adopted, and a couple of the addendum with it, is that you have to get out and do something. Among the things that were required here is that you can't stay home and talk on the radio and get your test book signed off. You have to avail yourself of opportunities. We make those opportunities available. If we have an incident someplace, a hurricane or whatever, we do our very best to make opportunities for people to participate. It may not be in the eye of the hurricane, but it may be in a responsive group. One of the branch offices, been a couple of them in the last year or two. I didn't have to deploy it down east again, but I could go to one of the regional centers and work. call somebody else in. You can bring a trainee in as well, and we'll feed them lunch. And so we get opportunities are presented for people to do that, but the individuals themselves not only have to have the opportunities, they have to take advantage of them. And sometimes they may not be right down the street. Maybe you need to go to a training institute. We have something, a big one called the DuPont exercise that lasts several days. People are welcome to participate in that as long as they sign up for it. And it takes a couple of days. Maybe it's Tuesday, Wednesday that you go to do it. That's just when it is. So we try to accommodate people where we can with AUXCOMM classes on the weekends and things like that. But the test book is an attempt to validate your ability to respond in incidents with more than one operational period. And that's not a walk or run a parade. I'm not knocking that, but you need to go out and learn how to work in a communications unit under a COML, doing the things that need to be done. And some of it may not at all be involved in amateur radio. The fact that you got stuff in the trunk of your car, or maybe you've got something you can use, is okay. And maybe we've got a radio turned on and listening to something. But you may be helping the COML with something else. He might say, hey, take care of this and call the PSAPs and find out why we haven't heard from Columbus County. Or the off the air, we need help out there. So anybody can do that if they're skilled in communications. So the opportunities are there. You just have to avail yourself.
Yeah, and Barry, we take that. So from my position, I take that as a case-by-case basis, right? Since we've only been, we've been infected by this problem for long enough. It seems, that time period is getting extended, but our document, it's a guideline, right? It's a qualification guideline, case-by-case basis as they present themselves. We will 100% honor folks that get task books. I get it. Real life takes over. And again, I'll go back to the comment I made. There's very few things that keep me up at night, but sending one of my team into harm's way, especially AUXCOMM, that's priority on my list. I'd rather not. I would rather have the brains of my amateur radio folks than have them. I'd rather have them remote on FaceTime with someone, having them walk through one of someone who is half trained into doing what they need to do, rather than put them in harm's way. So case by case basis.
That question was from Frank from North Carolina. So that's a good answer. The next question is from K7MEE in Idaho. Is the WinLink online training something North Carolina specific, or is it something available for anybody?
Good question. We haven't addressed that yet, so we'll certainly talk. We don't. The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. That's my perspective, and Godfather will throw me in the dumpster if that's not the case. But no, as far as we're concerned, as far as exercises and trainings, we want to make sure our North Carolina operators are taken care of first. But if we have the means to integrate others, please, I support that. So that's something we could talk about within within our the ultimate decision on anything AUXCOMM related will be Godfather's decision. So
the WinLink training is experiential, not conceptual. So doing it is the best, just like driving. Doing it is the best way to learn. And then if you have issues, you go to the WinLink website support page, join the WinLink programs group, and you get 3,000 answers to any question you ask.
I'm sure that is, yes. Okay, is there a state-funded AUXCOMM program manager and staff, or is it strictly volunteer-led?
If I were to pay them what they're worth, they'd be millionaires. But no, I don't. Unfortunately, North Carolina does not have a paid position for the coordination and the mobilization of amateur radio resources. So it is strictly volunteer.
Okay. See if there's anything more. Almost done. Some good comments in the chat for anybody. So
Barry,
later you can
Hey, Barry, let's get Marty an answer. He's put his question there a few times. Yeah, so
Okay.
I put up there before, Marty, it's about 4 or 5 questions up. Yeah, North Carolina uses the Emergency Management Assistance Compact for any intrastate mutual aid resource requests or requests. So it's a pretty complex thing. All 50 states and in the 6 territories, they are EMAC. They've adopted the EMAC process. So it's a series of mission ready packages. And we do have one of our members from North Carolina on that we've charged with coming up with an AUXCOMM specific mission ready package for EMAC usage if another one of our partner states needs assistance. Because in North Carolina, we are normally requesting emergency management or EMAC resources from other states. We've done it for years, and we can't do it without without our folks that come in and help on EMAC missions. We're at a point where we are now comfortable and we have the training set and we have the people to start paying those states back. So, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Virginia, Vermont, California, Arizona, Oregon, Illinois, Michigan. I'd be remiss, but I see you in we're trying to get to a point where we got your back and we want to make sure we start paying back. So.
Okay, that's all the questions in the chat, Dan. You want to get the other hands?
You betcha. Okay, let's hang on here. Let's Marty took his hand down. Marty, did you want to come in there?
No, I was just being a nuisance so Greg would see me pop up. I figured if he typed an answer, I'd put my hand down, and he typed an answer. So thank you. That's all I got. Good night, guys. 7-3.
Okay, for you, Gerald, KC5MWZ, go ahead.
How's my audio?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, to give you some idea where I'm coming from, to begin with, COVID is not my first pandemic. Okay. I've been there before, called polio. Okay. Some of my background. I spent 8 years at the Oklahoma Army Reserve National Guard as a helicopter crew chief. I've flown more than one rescue missions. I've flown quite a few rescue missions, and various aspects of all that goes into the typical duties of a helicopter crew chief in the National Guard when you're doing all kinds of missions related to public service out there. That's your job. Also, I spent about 10 years, 20 years I worked for Kerr McGee Corporation. I spent 10 years of that on the corporate emergency response team for all kinds of corporate chemical emergencies and spills and so forth, including their firefighting team. Also spent 5 years working for United Nuclear Corporation down in Florida. We built, did the pilot plant work, developed the process, and built the first plant to recover uranium from Florida Fire Acid back in the 70s. I spent 19 years in Air Force Mars, including being the Region 6 training manager for Air Force Mars, as well as a couple of years as the Oklahoma Mars state director. I've been in shares probably 13, 14, 15 years now. Several years ago, when the lights went out in the Super Bowl down in New Orleans, I was a shares net control, national net control on duty when the lights went out. So I got a little experience with this. May 3rd, 1999, Oklahoma City, the central Oklahoma, major tornado. I spent a whole month doing emergency radio communications, EMCOMM work for various agencies, including beginning with health and welfare traffic the night of the tornado, all night that night into the next morning. And then I got a little sleep and went back the next night and did another night of health and welfare traffic. And that's the one thing I missed in the AUXCOMM manual that I looked at, is it says nothing about health and welfare traffic. It's only in support of the management infrastructure, and nobody says anything about helping out the people out there in the pasture who got their house blown away. That's one objection I have to that. Also, and the other thing is the emergency management people here basically said, if you're not AUXCOMM trained, you're not getting out there in that damage area. So nobody is going to go out there and help those people with health and welfare traffic. They won't let you out there. That's real nice. The other thing is, I have no objection to doing the AUXCOMM, but I have spent many years doing emergency communications for real, not just practice, not just exercise, the real things in the pasture, in the storms, in the snow, in the tornadoes, all of that sort of thing. And I probably will not be deploying anywhere. I'm almost 80 years old. So that's not going to happen. But I'm currently the assistant region coordinator, communication coordinator for Shares, South Region. And that's going to be changed again tomorrow. If you're a Shares member, you'll find out about that tomorrow morning. So I would like to say that somewhere down this line, someone needs to include the people in the pasture who just had their house blown away, so that they get some direct support for radio communication and assistance. Because I'll guarantee you, when that May 3rd, 1999 tornado came through Oklahoma City, nobody was using cell phones. Nobody was using telephones. The cops couldn't talk to each other. The fire department couldn't talk to each other. Nobody could call anywhere out of that damaged area because there's no telephone support whatsoever. All the power lines were down. All the towers were down. Nobody talked out of anywhere except for ham radio operators. And I was doing all night doing health and welfare traffic. I was assisting the Red Cross as well as the Salvation Army, helping coordinate their efforts with other amateur operators. And none of us had an AUXCOMM patch on our shirt. And we just had our everyday radio operator shirts, and we got the job done. So, yeah, I understand that everybody needs uniform training. I was in the first training class for CERT, and I was trained as a CERT trainer here in Oklahoma City. I was in the first class in Oklahoma for CERT.
Greg,
So,
Greg, I like could we shorten this up a little bit? It's getting late.
and that's all I'd like to say. I'd like to see somebody include the help for the actual damaged person out there in the pasture. Thank you.
Quite welcome. Thank you, Gerald. Let's catch Jim, K6 IYK in Arizona.
Good evening, all. And hello to my many friends from many years. Number one, Greg, let me say that you have taken a step tonight that is hopefully a first step that's going to be very critical. Those of us that have been involved in emergency communications for a half a century know that we've dealt with all the issues of ARES and RACES and all the other names that tend to come about. And in fact, AUXCOMM is now finally beginning to show the kind of real organization that we need for emergency communications support. And I hope that we go from tonight into a leadership role of expanding AUXCOMM throughout the country. Let me answer one question that came up. We seem to have a real variety of experience on the call tonight. So let me answer one question that was asked earlier, if I may, and that was, where are these classes available? If you really want to understand what this is all about, you need to understand ICS. And the way you get started with that is you go to the FEMA classes that are online. Those are classes that you can take at your own speed, at your own level of interest. And if you will pay attention to them, very quickly, it will answer most of the questions, including a lot of those that Gerald just posed. This particular organization is not designed for health and welfare. This is, in fact, emergency communications. Once you have taken those FEMA classes, then the next thing you need to look at is the actual AUXCOMM classes. And I don't know whether Mr. Peterson will correct me this evening or not, but the best way to do that is the 1.5 to 2 day in-person classes, so that you can, in fact, work together and understand what the program is all about. But that is done at the state level. If everybody understands RACES, all RACES is an authorization. That's not an organization. It's an authorization. And it's the authorization that we use, in fact, when we start using amateur radio with other emergency communications. And as Greg has already pointed out, half the time you're not going to be on amateur radio anyway. You're going to be on the state's 800 meg system or whatever. The point is you are trained, you understand the organization, you understand the chain of command, and you understand how to handle traffic. And the WinLink discussion comes after the AUXCOMM discussion, and Steve can tell us 50 dozen ways to go learn about WinLink. All you need to do is get on the internet and you'll find that everybody and his brother has prepared some classes. Maybe we ought to try and screen through those and come up with a consolidated list so we can make recommendations to people. But getting involved is not impossible. It is something that you need to do in an organized fashion. And again, the first step is to go take those FEMA classes, 100, 200, 400 online. And by the way, they have all been recently updated. So if you took them 2 years ago or 5 years ago, you need to go back and take them again because they have changed. My bottom line, Greg, is that I'm hoping that somebody's going to pick up the ball here and schedule the second one of these meetings. As I indicated in the chat, my motto from day one has been success through teamwork. And in fact, if we work as a team, we will be able to solve some of those issues that, for example, the ARRL has not solved over all these years. And as Dan said, there's a new concerted effort to go try again. Well, maybe this group can help give that try again team some direction.
How about showing up here September 9, where you might hear what you want to hear?
September 9 for what, Steve?
For the John Peterson and the AUXCOMM, SafeComm's AUXCOMM National Council of SWIC's chairperson and part of her committee will be here to discuss AUXCOMM.
Okay, well, educate me. It's my knowledge that this is the first time we've gotten together.
Okay, be here September 9. It's in the series that Dan puts out.
Okay, so Dan's going to alert us all.
I hope so, yes.
Okay, good.
Again, folks, we're trying to make this stuff possible so we can start working together, all of us. I don't care what hat you have, what agency you're with. We all have the same problems, and we need to have the training. We need to have the common ground to work together. That's what we're trying to do here, to find out, to make it happen. If you've got some suggestions, please get a hold of Steve Waterman or myself, and we can see where we can put them in there, because I think we're, what do you want to say, construction-wise, whatever, we have a long ways to go to get ourselves together. We need to be able to work together, regardless of what happens we wear.
Bravo, Dan. Thank you. That's my bottom line. I believe that the need for that to happen exists, and you're telling me it's going to happen. Bravo.
We're going to sure do our best to make it happen. That's what we're trying to do, and we need people just like you to speak up and be a part of this.
And every invitation that we send out, the whole series is listed, and the dates, if you haven't looked at that, at the very bottom of the email. It's also available on the Rat Pack group and stuff like that. And Dan, maybe you could post it to everybody to see what
this session tonight, which concluded the entire series at the bottom, was distributed by FEMA Region 5, 4, 10, and 8. It was distributed by the CISA Shares organization to all Shares members, and it was distributed to many organizations who distributed it themselves. So if you don't have that, just write Dan or write me, and I'll be happy to send you the entire series.
Okay, well, if Shares is going to support us, the invitation that I received came from the sheriff's office. So if Shares is going to support us by including us on the mailing list, that will be excellent.
Okay, a lot of people here got the information third hand by forwarding information, stuff like that. When I get by tomorrow morning sometime, I will be putting out links to this video and everything that's happened here. We want that to be forwarded out too, so they can share it and keep this thing going. If you would like to be on a mailing list for us, make sure you're not lost this thing, please send Steve or myself an email, and we'll make sure you get there and get this information, and hopefully you will share it.
Thank you.
It's 10:35 in North Carolina, and I'm looking at Tom Brown, and he's looking like it's 10:35. So how about Dan, maybe take a question or two more or a comment, and then let those guys go, because they're probably tired. They worked all day. Tom Brown works whether he's working or not.
Okay. Well, I understand what you're saying, Steve, and I appreciate that. I'm sure everybody else does too. We'll be wrapping it up. It's important that everybody get these things, get to be heard. That's what this open thing is all about. So, Al, North Carolina, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. I just wanted to be sure I understand correctly. And Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. I just finished the AUXCOMM class here in Wilmington. And if I understand correctly, nobody's eliminating the amateur radio operator out there in the field that wants to help or ARIES or anything else. AUXCOMM actually undergirds ARIES and kind of shores us up and overarches us in that it gives us the ability to take our skills, and whereas ARIES has traditionally been very localized to a local EOC or to a county EOC or something like that, it now gives us the training and the capability to take that skill set that we have and bring it on up to the regional status and into the state EOC and that type of thing. So we're really expanding our skills. It's not excluding anyone that wants to go out and get the training to go ahead and augment what we have and move forward. So AUXCOMM is expanding on what we already have. We're not eliminating anyone that wants to move forward, just augmenting what we already have. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but that's kind of the way I saw from what training I got just recently. So I'll turn it back over to Greg to see if I'm right.
Hey Al, it's good to see you again, sir. No, you're right. And I don't mean to be crass or if I'm misrepresenting in any way. I kind of see it like like Major League Baseball's teams, right? So you've got all these teams that are out there. We're kind of putting together. I guess we're putting together like the all-star team, and I don't mean that to say that the members of the other teams are not all-stars. We're giving a method to take those folks that want to engage and want to fall into an ICS structure. We're giving those folks the means to one, interact with their local authority having jurisdiction, to become a more capable resource for them. Because in the ICS AUXCOMM class, as you know, you're going to do paperwork. You're going to do a lot of it, right? But the emergency management coordinators that are on this call, I see a couple of them. Sometimes that is going to be a lifesaver for them. If you can understand the language that they're speaking and the requirements that they have to complete the incident action plan, you're going to be able to do that. So that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish. So it's probably a bad analogy, but you're right. I mean, we're not, again, it's an ICS position that is made up of trained personnel, regardless of what organization or group that they're a part of. So.
Well, certainly, an amateur radio operator in the EOC would not refuse a call from another amateur radio out there in the field reporting that somebody's got a problem. They're going to pass it on. And so, we're just augmenting. That's the way I see it.
I think I'd like to make something clear that's from my vision of this, and that is Disaster service comes in all different forms. We have hams out there, they're part of their local disaster organization, whatever hat they wear. And maybe all they got is a little handheld, and that's all they want to do. That's okay. Your local sheriff or your local people probably need you. Whether you're going to send, augment the manpower they have to watch a blockage or whatever, you're part of that team. There are those that want to do more, and there's a place for you. There's a place for everybody in this thing, and the place for us all to work together to make it work. It's just a matter of what you as an individual want to do, and the opportunities are endless. So just go for it.
It's all part of what's called the Unified Command, where you get police, fire, EMS, the health department, the public works department, all together and work together under one unified command structure. And when it works great. And that's what we're doing.
And we're going to do our best here to get that to work even better. Rick, go ahead and do this. We're going to start wrapping this up quickly. W6SUZ, go ahead and take it.
Can you hear me? I unmuted.
Okay, there you are.
You got me?
I got you.
Okay, sorry about the delay. So one of my concerns is I work with some local fellows here that have been involved with ARES for a while. They've got some skills, a lot of them taking the ICS courses. WinLink, they have the equipment, but for various reasons, family, health, whatever, these guys are not going to deploy to the state or county level. They would support their local towns, hospitals, shelters. Trouble is communication to those people. Greg had mentioned that part of the team includes REACT and ARES, but they're not getting any notification when the branches are stood up. Those folks don't know about it. They're not really invited to the party. So how do they know that something's going on? Should we send blind messages when we think something's happening to one of the branches, or what do we do there?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. Thank you, Rick. So I think as communications folks, we tend not to communicate, if I can say it straight away. So I think from both sides, right? Communications is bilateral. So in in the ICS world, you always communicate one up and one down in the ICS, incident command structure. So if it is something that we feel is going to occur, or you feel is going to occur locally, that communication to whatever that established coordinating entity is, whether it's local emergency management, whether it's the local EC or the local AUXCOMM coordinator, the regional coordinator, whatever. If there's a question, someone needs to ask it. We'll get it to the right person. Someone will get it to the right person to get a good answer. Might take a little bit of time, but where we miss the mark, from my perspective in my world is that we foresee not getting information as isolating someone, right? That's not the intent at all. I think it's just the amount of moving parts and pieces. And in some cases, there's almost like a siloed effect where people, if they're not getting information, they're going to say, whatever. On the complete flip side of that is you have people that they don't get information, so they automatically take action. So that gets into your self-deployments and your people showing up at EOCs with emergency managers not knowing who they are, not knowing what they represent, kind of busting the door down and saying, I'm here to save the world. That creates conflict simply because of a miscommunication. So love that question. I think if it's specific, I think we need to get it done. I see you're from North Carolina. Let's get it done. Let's get that information so it's flowing openly. So good stuff, Rick. Thank you.
Greg, let me ask a question. All of these different factions, groups, amateur clubs, REACT, whatever, AUXCOMM is the umbrella that includes all of them.
Mm-hmm.
If they were in the AUXCOMM communication as a part of it, they would be included rather than having to be separated for this organization or that organization as an auxiliary service. Isn't AUXCOMM umbrellaing all those organizations, areas. You can't list all the clubs and all the organizations and expect you as an agency, a state agency, to notify them separately. They need to join the auxiliary communications portion of the state's ESF2 function, rather than having the state go chase individual organizations that it may or may not know exist. That's my opinion from over here in the peanut gallery.
Okay, well,
Amen.
I'll add something to this. Doing with volunteers, as you all know, is an interesting challenge. And so what I'm suggesting, one thing that we did with early on, we developed a groups IO for Aries type stuff and disaster communications. It's branched out, all kinds of people in there. We got over 1,000 members, and they talk. In fact, Japan's in there because they're interested in what's going on with us. And when they have earthquakes, they tell us about it. It's a normal way of communications. I'm not saying to join that or do that, but we need a common place for everybody that is probably not related to any specific group. So we eliminate this, what do you call it, tribalism type of thing. They get the information. They're in the loop and can correspond and get rid of some of this miscommunications for whatever human reason there is. So if that can be arranged, that would be great. It probably have to be done at the top level. You're welcome to use what we set up. That's not a problem, but it's probably better done from the state or federal level. But do you see where I'm coming from, Greg?
Yeah. So I think let me equate this to the fire service in my days in Charlotte. So if we saw a hurricane brewing in the Atlantic, and then if we saw it was going to impact North Carolina, all of the people, the swiftwater rescue techs, all the rock breakers, everybody who had a mission to do, everyone started to get jumpy, right? Because nobody was talking, right? They're like, oh, I know we're going. Then they start to prepare themselves mentally, and then all of a sudden, people start showing up, and they're like, hey, nobody's talking to us. What's going on, right? We were mentally burned out. So at the point for which they requested our team and we mobilized, we were already stressed out, right? I think letting that information come to you once those communications pathways are created and made, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, only you and your organization can figure that out, and only your state can figure that out, and your local jurisdiction. But I think that just that communications pathway and that check-in to say, yeah, we got it, we're working on it, we got a list of 20 different things that we could use 20 different people, we're just not there yet. But the more you reach out and the more you send emails, and I'll be honest with you, this is going to be recorded, I hate to admit this, during a disaster, you don't look at email, right? I don't have the time to look at email. I'm working through, being an effective manager is getting work done through others, right? I'm assigning those people to say, I need you to keep an eye on amateur radio status. I need you to find out what's happening in Bladen County, North Carolina. We haven't gotten any word from them. No one can reach out to them. Find out what's going on. You, and you. Figure out what's happening. I want it done in the next 30 minutes, right? For those that take ICS courses, that's called an objective, right? It's measurable. You got time. You got, you have clear objective, right? So I think those that just because you don't get information does not mean that there isn't a potential tasking. I think what everyone misses is your initial tasking, if a disaster is coming to North Carolina, should be taking care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, you have no business trying to take care of others. So that's my soapbox. But I think you're right on, Dan. I think there's many. I think everyone has a Google group or a Facebook page. Everybody's got one. I think, that that's kind of where we're at. There's so many different methods and means, and it's all worthwhile. So.
Well, we need to address that in the sense of how to pull all that together. It might require somebody assigned just to be looking at that and feed what's the pertinent information to those that need it. But we need to find a method to pull all that together, regardless of what it is, who it is, or how it comes together. We need that common place to pull it together. I'll talk to Steve afterwards and brainstorm with him. Maybe we can brainstorm with you guys and everybody else and come up with a solution. But I think we need to do that. Try to make it easier on everybody. Okay, we've got two hands. I say this because I'm holding everybody out myself. Kenny, go ahead. We're going to try to wrap this up. Kenny, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Kenny, KC4OJS. Long story short, we take a group of volunteers on a regular basis back up into the mountains of East Tennessee, and we spend about half of our time over in Graham County, North Carolina, some in Cherokee County, North Carolina. And what we do is we just go up and set up on the mountaintops and do HF WindLink position reports and just kind of work with the battery operations, solar power. And just listening to this group tonight, especially in North Carolina, I was wondering, is there someone in Graham County that I can get in touch with or can get in touch with me? Because we're spending half of our time with these folks training up there in the mountains. And I didn't even know that anything was going on in North Carolina as far as AUXCOMM or anything, and maybe just, exchange some names and some information. If somebody in Graham County that you're aware of could just email me at my call sign at windlink.org, I'd love to meet them and chat with them, explain to them what we're doing in their county so we're communicating. And we're in Tellico Plains, Madisonville area, right up against the mountains here, so that the folks in North Carolina know where we're talking. It's Monroe County. The Graham County is the neighboring county for us in North Carolina. And with that, I'll get quiet and listen, and thank you for everything that you guys are doing.
Well, thank you. And we keep adding more people. Oh, I'm sorry, Greg, did you want to say something?
No, Dan, that right there is a win for this program tonight. Relationship building and trading cards and getting phone numbers. You do that now. You do not do it during a disaster. So it's a win. Win in my book.
Okay, can we speed this up? We keep getting more hands up. I want to cover them all, but this is getting late for everybody, folks. Clayton, can you make her fast there over in Florida?
Yeah, I can make it real quick for you. Yeah, there's one thing they were talking about, the communications part of it. And what we do with we have an ACS and an Aries group. They're commingled. The only difference between the two is the ACS group, which is very similar to the RACES. They're the ones that have been fingerprinted, ID, vetted, all of that good stuff. So they can actually go to the shelters. But all of our guys that are on our distribution group, we make sure that they get a copy of the actual situation report or the sit rep as it's published out to all of our EM municipalities. And our emergency management director is very, very pro amateur radio communications. And we're fortunate in the fact that any reports that come out that go out to the municipalities or any of the other groups, our guys are included in that. So even if they're not responding at that moment, they at least are abreast of what situation is going. So Greg, I don't know if that's something y'all want to possibly look at, because I know when I was up in Florence, we were getting some of the sit reps pushed out and stuff, of maybe pushing some of those sit reps out to your amateur radio group. So at least they're aware of what's going on, and you don't have that sort of vacuum of, okay, I don't know what's happening. And with that, I've thoroughly enjoyed it tonight, guys. I appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're quite welcome. Again, Rat Pack has a groups IO for this, and it's over 1,000 members. I think what 1,200, 1,500 members on that. They're all Aries or RACES. They're all disaster communications related. This is a good conversation to put on that, and get a lot of vetting out and how to be best done. And let's move on quickly. Dan, can you keep it quick?
Yeah, for the first time a couple minutes ago, you said something that made me shiver. And it's probably because I misunderstand you, but you said, we got 1,000 users and you can use that to get the word out. That's okay, good. Thank you. I'm going away now. It's got to happen at the local level. And these folks that are not misinformed, but or subject of misinformation, they're just out of the loop. That's what has to be fixed. And I think AUXCOMM at the state level is about as big as an organization can get, and still provide the situational awareness needed to keep everybody in the loop. Thanks. Goodbye.
All I'm suggesting there, Dan, is that group made up of everybody from the ECs, SECs, and everybody representing different groups. That's a good place to discuss this stuff.
This is an ideal blue sky organizational discussion group.
Yes, you got it. You got it. It's not the answer, but the people in the field, the people on the ground, the people who's doing the job need to have their voices heard, and that's what that's for. Okay, one more, last one. Yay! No more. Nobody else hold their hands up. Bob, go ahead and take it.
Bob Rogers has his hand up.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just a quickie for Kenny. I'll be in touch with you in the next 24 hours with some information. I am the Western Branch Coordinator for AUXCOMM in the state, and I'm sure we can work something out.
Thank you.
All right. That sounds great. Appreciate everybody here. A bunch of you stayed on really late. Those on the East Coast are going to want to sleep in the morning. Of course, you can't. Most of you got to go to work. Those that can sleep in, good for you. So at any rate, I'm going to pull the plug, say 73s. We'll see you next week, we hope. Keep those emails coming, suggestions going. We got to find ways to make this all work better. And thanks for Steve for all your work in doing this.
And next week we have a FEMA region that's going to talk to us about how they integrate amateur radio into the FEMA region with the states, counties, whatever. They're going to talk about that. And then I think after that, isn't that the AUXCOMM group?
Oh, you're talking to me. I'll have to bring my up.
I don't remember. But anybody that needs, Edwin put in the chat the schedule. Anybody that needs it, just contact Dan or contact me. Be happy to give it to you.
You betcha. Yes. This is the start of something good, we hope.
Thank you,
Greg.
And thank you, Bob Rogers. Bob Rogers, you just paid the rent for this evening.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Tom Brown, Godfather,
Yes.
if wherever you are.
All right, 73s, everyone. We could do this.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you, Barry. Good ball out to lead out of here. 73s.